Hey guys, Miss Davis here again. We got Unit 10, Skill 3, which is sector area. So go ahead and write down your essential question. What is and how do I use the sector area formula? Okay, so arc length was one formula that's going to look very similar to this new one, which is called sector area. So if you look over here, let's just look at the area formula first. So it's angle over 360, which is the same as the arc length formula. But now we've got A, that capital A just means area of the sector divided by the area of the full circle, okay? So let's talk quickly about what is a sector anyway. So a sector is basically like the area enclosed by that central angle. It's like a piece of the pie. If this was a nice chocolate pie, that sector would be the slice of pie that you would cut. You always want to try to start your slices from the center out so they're nice and even and nobody's getting an unfair piece. So a sector is just the region formed by the central angle. Okay, so our steps are going to be to plug in the central angle for the angle, find the area of the full circle. So a refresher on how do you find the area of a circle is just pi r squared. Pi times r squared. This is on your reference sheet. It's also something you should have in your memory from previous courses. And then we'll just do the same as we did before to cross multiply and find the sector area or the central angle. Okay, so when we look down here, it'll one as simple as this could pop up. Determine the area of the sector in terms of pi. So again, remember that in terms of pi means leave it on your paper. Do not put it in your calculator. So we're finding the sector area, which is all this area in here. Okay, so we've got angle over 360 equals, I'm just going to even shorten it even further, area of the sector, A of S, over pi r squared. That's the area of the full circle. So maybe I should have put that up here too, pi r squared. And then I usually just use capital A sub S to denote the area of the sector. Okay, so our angle that we're given is 120 over 360 equals, we're going to switch that to an x to make it a little bit easier, area of the sector, over pi r squared. So pi, our radius is equal to 9, so we'll do pi 9 squared, and then cross multiply. So when we cross multiply, we get 360x equals, what you probably want to do really quick off to the side is pi 9 squared is really 81 pi. Okay, because 9 times 9 is 81. So this we could even cross out and write 81 if you want there. So then when we cross multiply, we're just doing 81 times 120. Okay, so 81 times 120, leaving pi out of the calculation, is 9,720. But don't forget to tack your pi back on. Okay, so and then last step, to get your x by itself, divide both sides by 360, and those cancel, and just throw this into your calculator. So we know that our answer will be x equals something pi, and when we divide those two numbers, we end up with 27. Okay, so again, leaving your answer in terms of pi is just fine like that, 27 pi. If it said to calculate or to find round to the nearest something, you would multiply those together to get your answer. All right, next one down. Here's another example where we are given a diagram of circle B. Circle B just means that that's the center point there. And the area of the shaded sector, ABC, so of this whole area enclosed here by this sector, is 14 pi. So they gave you the area of the sector is 14 pi. Don't put the units into your, if they give you units, just ignore them. Don't worry about it. Don't put them in the equation. And the length of AB is 6. So A to B is your radius is 6. Determine and state the measure of angle ABC. So you're finding the central angle. So let's write it out again. Angle over 360 equals area of the sector over pi r squared. Wow, sorry, my handwriting is atrocious right now. Pi r squared. There we go. Okay, so our angle is x over 360 equals area of the sector is 14 pi divided by pi and our radius squared, 6 squared. Okay, so I hope you remember from the last video or last topic that if there's pi's on top and bottom, just cancel them out. Makes it a little bit easier for you. And then let's go ahead and cross multiply. So I'm going to do x times 6 squared. 6 squared is 6 times 6 is 36. So we really get 36 times x there equals 360 times just regular 14 is 5,040. And then divide by 36. So we get x equals 140 degrees. And just to restate your answer as they asked for it, it's the measure, so that little m means the measure of angle ABC is 140 degrees. Okay? All right, next page. All right, example 3. Triangle FGH is inscribed in circle O. The length of radius OH is 7, so I'm going to label, it's already labeled the 7. And they told us that FH is congruent to OG. So I'm going to make sure and make a note that you label with tick marks on your diagram. So FH is congruent to OG. Okay, so those guys are congruent. O is the center because it says circle O. So it says determine the area of the sector formed by the angle FOH in terms of pi. Okay, so let's write out our formula, figure out what we got, what we need. Equals area of the sector over pi r squared. Okay, so they're asking us to find the area of the sector, which means we know that we're going to have x on top over pi r squared. Our radius is 7, so it'll be pi 7 squared. On the left side, 360 is always on the bottom. What are we missing? We're missing the central angle, and they want the angle formed by FOH. So I'm going to highlight that angle, FOH, this guy right there. So they want us to find this green shaded sector, okay, the area of that. But what we don't know is the angle that is enclosing that sector. So we don't know this guy right here. So we have to think a little bit deeper about what they give us here, this label part, and how we can apply it to the rest of our knowledge of geometry. So if we have that OG is congruent to FH, then we need to think about the fact that OG is a radius because it connects the center to the edge of the circle. So if that's true, then isn't it also true that OF is also a radius? And OH is also a radius. So all three of these segments are all radii, okay? So they all are the same equal distance. So they're all 7, 7, 7. So how does that help us find our central angle? Well, we have to remember and think back to, that's ugly. Let's see. What kind of triangle they just gave us. So if we redraw that triangle over here, they gave us a triangle with 3 equal sides, which is an equilateral. So if you are given an equilateral triangle, that means that each angle, if you remember, is, whoa, not 360, 180 divided by 3 is each angle is 60 degrees. So that means it's 60, 60, 60. So our central angle in here, I can apply that knowledge, that outside knowledge, that the angle that we're given, or sorry, that we're working with is 60 degrees. Okay? All right, and then from there it should be pretty straightforward, just like we've been doing on the front. So in terms of pi, don't put pi in your calculator. So I'm going to get 360x equals, I'm going to rewrite that 7 squared. 7 times 7 is 49. So I'm going to do 60 times 49 in my calculator. And when I do, I get 2,940 pi. So we're going to remember to tack that pi on the edge there and divide both sides by 360. So we get x equals, once again, just making sure to only divide these two things, not the pi. You can even put the pi on the end there if you want. And our calculator is just going to reduce it down for us to 49 over 6. And you can leave it just like that. You could divide it out, write down the decimal, but it's fine to leave it as a fraction. That's actually the more accurate representation of the number. All right, our last one here says in the diagram below of circle O, the area of the shaded sector is LOM is 2 pi. Okay, so LOM, I'm going to highlight that and draw in that is what they have given us here. So this green sector area is 2 pi. Okay. If the length of NL is 6 centimeters, so we're saying from N to L is 6, all the way over there, then that means that if that's the center, then this is 3 and that's 3. So our diameter is 6 and our radii are going to be 3 and 3. What is the measure of angle N? So we're trying to find this angle right here, X. Okay, so I want you to step back and think about what kind of angle N is. So angle N is way over there, and it's an inscribed angle. Okay, so an inscribed angle is equal to the angle that it is open to divided by 2. So if we can find this angle here, and we're going to call that angle Y, then we can assume, or not assume, but know that that is equal to this portion, which we would have to then divide by 2 to get the measure of this inscribed angle. Okay, so they give us the central angle to find, and then we have to use it to divide it by 2, cut it in half to find the inscribed angle N. So it's a two-part question. So our first part is to use the angle over 360 equals area of the sector over pi r squared. Okay, so I called that central angle as Y. So I'm going to write Y over 360 equals area of the sector is 2 pi. So I'm going to plug in a 2 pi, which it says right there, over pi r squared. So our radius was 3. So I'm going to plug in pi 3 squared. And then cross multiply. Well, before I do that, let's cancel out our pi's, make our lives easier, and cross multiply. So I'm going to do 3 squared, which is really 9. So it'd be 9 times y is 9y equals 360 times 2 is 720. Divide by 9, we get y is equal to 80. Okay, so 80 degrees is the measure of the central angle that is in our picture. So this is the central angle, which I'm going to draw in right here, is 80. And 80 degrees is also going to go here because central angles are equal to the arcs that they're open to. Now, if we want to find our inscribed angle N, so angle N is equal to the central angle over 2. So angle N is just equal to 80 degrees divided by 2. Cut it in half to go back into your inscribed angle and get angle N is equal to 40 degrees.
Can I steal your chair?
And that's that. Okay, so that angle N, the inscribed angle, is again half of the angle that it's open to because it is an inscribed angle. So we had to dig back and use some skills from the beginning of the unit and apply it to this new problem. Okay, so go ahead and write your summary down here and do all of your practice.